So thanks for joining us. We're going to talk here. I think we've got about probably 45 minutes slated here, time for Q&A, but thanks for joining us. So this is Latitud Open All Hands. Now, most companies have all hands meetings, but those are usually reserved for the people that work in the company or on the team. But we have recently been kind of experimenting a lot more with building in public as a movement. And we think that it's an incredible opportunity to put your ideas out there and get feedback from your customers, from your partners. And I've always said that execution is everything. And so we might as well live by that, by just putting out our plans for the world. And then there's benefits of constantly learning from feedback with all those people that are in our community or thinking about joining our community or want to join the team. And so that's the idea today. So let's talk a little bit more about the agenda for today. So I'm going to give a quick overview of, a bit more about what we're going to talk about today, as well as a few comments on Latam. And then I'm going to have Gina, my co-founder, COO, talk about the fellowship and the community. And then Tommy's going to jump up and we're going to share a little bit more about our little fund that we have. We've got a handful of LPs here, other founders that are also raising capital. And we'll close it out with some products where, we're kind of this hybrid thing of a community, education, a fund, and then we're also a product-driven company. So, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So without further ado, let me just dive right in here. I think that we've all seen that Latin America has kind of hit this inflection point. And, a lot of eyes are on the region now, and it's exciting times. I mean, I remember back in the days when I started, it was a different scene. And I'm very enthusiastic and bullish on where we are today. And the numbers kind of back that up, right? You've probably seen in some, variety, this graph here. 2019 really was that inflection point. But, we look at where we are in 2021, and that trend is accelerating and carrying forward. But what's interesting about these numbers is that when you look at the total dollars gone into these regions, total venture dollars, and you compare that with as a percentage of the GDP of the region, it still pales in comparison to pretty much every market around the world, the US, Europe, Asia. And so it's, that presents an opportunity. I think there's 7 times more money as a percentage of GDP going into the US, for example. So we're just still at an early stage in our ecosystem, but it's really starting to ramp up. Now, despite this exciting kind of momentum, the region does remain a bit disjointed. In this little graph, I think it's symbolic. People from the US talk about Latin America and they kind of just bunch it all together, when we know that, there's oftentimes, if you're a founder in Argentina, you're not collaborating or connecting with other founders in Mexico. It's a pretty disjointed geographically, and so we're looking to change that. As I mentioned, it's also still underinvested, heavily underinvested. I mentioned India. India it's a large market. The last decade receives a lot of venture dollars going in, but it's only half the size of Latin America as a region, yet it received twice the venture dollars. And I would say that operating in India is probably even more complex than operating throughout Latin America, where you have tons of different languages, different cultures across India, where Latin America is if you're in Sao Paulo and you go to, Bogota, Colombia, the similarities are probably far greater. Lastly, I would say that the region's still starving for these tech-driven solutions to become world-class, which is why we're here to help transform that. So Latitud is where founders jumpstart their journey in Latin America. And we do that really through kind of 3 main areas, which we're going to cover today, and not in this particular order. So capital, we do have a small fund, and thanks to the LPs that are on this call that have supported us. We'll talk a little bit more about the fund, but that's going to reach hundreds of startups. We plan on investing in hundreds of startups. Tommy will give us a quick state of affairs of where we are today and what we're doing with the fund. Community is another really important aspect, and we think that we can scale this community to reach tens of thousands of people to be part of this movement. And then outside of that, we want to build products. We're entrepreneurs. We don't want to just be investors or community builders. We want to actually build things. And so we plan to reach hundreds of thousands of people with those products. And you may subscribe to our podcast, which is one of the fastest growing podcasts on venture capital and startups. And we have a handful of other content initiatives, but we see content as a distribution for our products, as a way to attract people into our community, and also as a way to elevate the investments that we do, through the fund. So that's a little bit more about the kind of overview. And I'd love for Gina to hop in and share a little bit more about the community, which is, as she describes, the heart and soul of Latitud.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, hi, I'm Jean, as Brian said. I'm co-founder and COO at Latitud. And with regards to our fellowships, there's a lot of different moving pieces, but it's at the center of everything that we're doing. If you've ever started a company, or if you've read Brian's book, you know that starting a company is really, really lonely. And often even your spouse or the closest people in your life don't really understand what you're doing. It often feels like everything's falling apart. And having a community is extremely important, not only for support, but also, if you've been to Silicon Valley, you probably experienced going to a cafe or going to a bar where everyone is sharing information about startups all the time, to a point where it can get annoying, but it's this magical, invisible web of information flowing at all times, so that if you are an entrepreneur, you get to sort of jump through hoops that much more quickly, because you don't have to solve everything from scratch. So that doesn't exist many places outside of Silicon Valley. It especially doesn't exist in Latin America. I joke that Latin America is basically just Latin America for Americans. Like, in Latin America, we don't really feel like we're Latin America. As Brian said, there isn't a lot of cohesion, but there's so much opportunity to learn from each other and to support each other. So the fellowship basically provides three different types of value. The first one is the community, which I just outlined, and we'll talk a little bit more. A place for you to ask questions and learn much more quickly than you would, find support, and learn new ideas. Then there's a knowledge piece, which is, there's tons of knowledge out there. You can watch all the YouTube videos that you want, and you can access YouTube videos. But in general, if you're part of a program and you're in Latin America, you get access to mentors who are amazing in your city, or maybe in your country, in best case scenario. We now live in a world where we can give people access to the best mentors and top performers at top tech companies all over the world, regardless of where they are. And so through our program, we have a 6-week program, and we have our mentors come and teach sessions and do workshops, and top people who actually top operators at companies like Yelp and Twilio, Google, and then a lot of the Latin American companies too, Nubank, Rappi, etc. And then finally, with regards to resources, not only do we provide our fellows with continuously growing discounts to the tools they'll need to build companies, because they're super expensive, but also resources in terms of templates, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. And our mentors are constantly sharing resources from what they're using in their well-known and successful companies as well, so that we can pick up where they left off. Next slide, please, Brian. So who are our fellows? We're really excited and have been pretty blown away by just the level of experience and knowledge that has been trickling into the community since day one. Here's just kind of a depiction of all the different kinds of fellows that we have. So it's really important for us that we represent Latin America as truthfully as we can with regards to the size of the countries, GDP, et cetera. We want this to be a truly regional program. And so you can see some of the breakdown. Brazil is a huge country with a huge GDP. It takes a large part of that graph, but we're continuously optimizing for diversity. I'll quickly touch on the right side graph as well, which is a diversity related slide. I'm proud that we have 21.6% female founders in our group. It's actually really it takes a lot of effort to go find female founders, because they're less likely to apply. And at Latitud, we find it really important to recruit diverse founders. And so if you know people of color, women, anyone who's not your normal founder, please send them to us, because we want to incorporate them into our program. And then with regards to the actual stages of fellows, we have a wide variety. We have people who are high performers at companies like Rappi or like Google or whatever, and would like to start their own company. They might have an idea, they might have semblances of an idea or be interested in an industry. So we call that the ideation phase, all the way through having the beginnings of a product, maybe having a team, an MVP, testing, and growth. So it's anything pre-Series A is where our fellows fall in right now. And that's all falling into the same fellowship right now, but it's going to change moving forward. And then with regards to, where these people have come from, a lot of top companies that you've heard of that are listed in the bottom, but also a lot of Stanford MBA graduates and McKinsey and a lot more. Next slide, Brian. With regards to what actually happens in the fellowship, as I mentioned, we have mentors from well-respected companies, investment firms, and we cover a number of topics that are crucial to any founder, but specifically early stage. So some of them are listed on the left. It's also important to note that we get to iterate on our curriculum on a recurring basis. Basically, every single session that we do, we get grades and comments from all of a large fraction of our fellows, and we're able to iterate and understand what's working, what's not working, what can improve for the next one. So it's a living being and changes. Next slide. Finally, just a couple of numbers. We're excited by the interest that we've seen, even without like real marketing. We've had over 1,000 projects apply to join the fellowship. We've selected 221 of those projects so far, which brings us to 375 founders in our community right now. We are running our 4th cohort at the moment. Each cohort is a 6-week program. And we've had a really positive reviews from our founders and a 91 NPS from the first cohort. And that's remained our average throughout. And it's really important to note that this program is equity free. Everything we do is thinking of founders first and how to benefit founders, the founder's journey, and make things easier, not harder during the journey. Next slide. And then I can talk about how our fellowship is really cool, but it's kind of lame because, you know, I'm obviously biased. So maybe you can hear something from our founders, our fellows.
I'm a second-time founder, so I didn't create much expectation of learning a lot, but the content was amazing. The sessions were great.
Coming from a tech background, it provided me everything I needed to know about everything else. It made me think bigger.
It's just absolutely amazing, and the spirit that you breathe and feel every day with a participation is just, you know, unbelievable. You guys are just transforming this ecosystem for the good.
We've had at least $500,000 in commitments out of the introductions that we got from you guys. So super impressed.
The organization, like the time respect wise, like sessions started right at time, ended right at time.
You make an appointment, everybody's there on time.
It was always run perfectly, so that's amazing.
The quality of the mentors was like terrific. Definitely like the energy that you guys have, it's amazing. It's such a great environment, even in the digital world.
Every single conversation I had led to a follow-up meeting. And it was kind of amazing to feel the sense of collaboration among the community in such a short amount of time.
I would say it again, the level of honesty, the level of speakers, but mainly the energy that everyone puts here. It's really something to be thankful about.
Yeah, so that's it. And finally, we have a lot of quotes that make us very excited throughout the days. This is one that we like in particular that highlights the sense of community and camaraderie that, you know, seems like a fluffy term, but in the day-to-day when things are really hard and you finally meet people who are willing to kind of be real and open up, it can really make a difference. So the quote says, "There are moments in my startup journey where I feel the high pressure of YC, so Y Combinator, and feel somewhat isolated, and I'll pop into a Latitud call and feel a sense of belonging and camaraderie with people being very open about their businesses." Next slide, Brian. With regards to how our fellowships work, right now we've had sort of one flagship fellowship, but we have a lot of plans for the future. For one, we are going to be focusing a little bit more by stage. So moving forward, we'll have a fellowship more focused on ideation folks and one more focused on build. We may even, subdivide more. The idea is to help you find people who are at your stage and to get the content that's most relevant to you. And then we're also super excited to launch an angel investing fellowship in the second half of this year, to bring more people into the angel investing ecosystem, to give more people access to amazing deal opportunities. And yeah, so if you're interested, actually no, we'll wait until the end, and then we were going to have other fellowships too. What I wanted to say is that we have a lot of plans for the fellowships. Like I said, it's a really important key piece of what we're doing, and we're looking for a fellowships director to come in and own all of these fellowship programs from beginning to end. And you know, if you know someone who might be a great candidate for this role, especially if they're a woman, please direct them to this link below, bit.ly/latitudefd, so fellowships director, just so that you remember it. Next slide.
I think the next slide is me, which I'll jump on. Thank you so much, Gina. And yeah, we're really excited about scaling up the fellowships. And we think this can be, you know, an incredible opportunity to democratize more access to information, be a great, you know, source of you know, expanding the community and elevating the next generation of iconic companies. So, you know, thanks for all the hard work that you've put in there. And yeah, we're really hoping that we can find that right person to help us scale the fellowship. So, you know, the community has really driven these incredible network effects that we've seen. You know, this cohort-based programs, it's really kicked off this flywheel for us, where, you know, we've had founders come through, and you know, to date, you know, we've had founders that have raised, you know, north of $20 million post or during our fellowships. And so amazing founders, they attract capital, and then that capital fuels growth. And fortunately, you know, that capital, once, you know, those companies are scaling, more talent comes on board, and more, you know, talent succeeds. And we think the ultimate flywheel is if we can attract more founders, help them, you know, raise capital, that capital allows them to elevate their companies, more talent is attracted. And then hopefully we're starting to see those founders and, you know, executives of those top companies reinvest back into other startups. And that's really when you hit this virtuous cycle. And so we think that Latitude is really primed to be able to, you know, get these network effects going locally, things that you see in the Silicon Valley, you know, but now it's decentralized, and, you know, here we are, you know, building this in Latam. So I'm going to have Tommy talk about how the community has helped us with our fund as well, because it's become, you know, a very powerful way to, you know, start deploying capital. We didn't start out to become a fund, you know, and it was more of a question of, I'd been doing some angel investing, and this community was just burgeoning, and we really, you know, saw an opportunity to start deploying some capital. So Tommy, if you could come up and discuss a little bit more about the rolling fund and give everybody a quick overview of where we are with that.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. Good to see you here. So yeah, I'll tell you about what we're doing with the Latitud Fund, right? So Gina just described that our fellowship programs are equity-free mentorship programs, right? So how does it work with the fund, right? What we're doing here is basically meeting the widest possible number of amazing early stage founders in Latin America, right? We run a very selective admissions process. We onboard a selection of them to our fellowship programs, as Gina said, equity-free. We add value to all of them through mentorship, through community, peer-to-peer learning, as Gina was describing. And we also get the chance to meet them really deeply during the 6 weeks of the fellowship, right? So we got the chance to add value, to build goodwill with them, but also, of course, to get to know them well and in a way pick the ones that we think are most promising in terms of a potential investment, right? So what we do with the fund sits next to the fellowship, and throughout the different cohorts, we select a handful of teams and we make them an investment offer, right? The fund is decoupled, right? So we're not an accelerator. I think that's clear. The teams don't have an obligation to take our terms, but we usually have added so much value with them that we see that they are happy not only to take our money, but they want us in their cap table because they know we can be a partner going forward, as we have been up to that point, right? So after we invest, we'd like to invest, to have conviction, to invest early, get good valuations, and then of course we keep supporting them. We have a demo day. We'll have the next one in late July. And through the demo day, we hope to build a signal, right? We hope to give exposure to these founders, to the best investors across Latam and in the US, whether that's angel investors or VC funds. And of course, then keep supporting them in their company operation, right? So we're investing between 25K and 250K checks in pre-seed and seed in companies coming throughout our cohorts in most cases. Brian, yeah. So where does that place us in terms of the journey, fundraising journey for a Latin American founder, right? So we think we could be the initial partner, right? Right next to the angels. And again, as I think we said, we really believe that Latam needs way more help at the pre-seed and early, the Latam founders, right, need more help at the pre-seed and early seed. There's amazing angels, but we think we can occupy a space there with a lot of local knowledge and local network, right? So we're happy to be the first institutional investor with our small fund. Some of our founders then choose to go to YC, some don't. And then, of course, they keep on raising from the top investors from Latam and from the world. So where are we right now with the fund? We basically launched our fund 4 months ago. So remember, Latitude has a year of life up to now, but the fund is newer than that. We launched it 4 months ago, and we've been moving pretty fast, right? We've done 18 investments up to now. Of course, we had a few cohorts last year, so we had met those founders very, very deeply. So we move forward with investing in some of them. Our average check size is 100K at the moment, although I mentioned we could do from 25 to 250K. When we do a small check in 25, 50K, we usually do it in very, very early teams, almost like talent investing. And luckily, up to now, all of the offers we made were accepted by the founders, because again, they see the value we can bring to the table with them. So some of our selected investments, Pomelo, Kokomo, Eleva, Newtel, Cluvi, Kubo, again, a few out of the 18. Pomelo is probably the most public one right now. So we were the first investors in Pomelo. They came through our fellowship. We were the first investors, and with let's call it a small pre-seed, and then we helped them fundraise and raise, I think, quite a record-breaking 9 million seed round from top global and regional investors led by Monashis and Index Ventures, with the participation of Max Lepshin, Angela Strange, and other folks. So that brings us to the LP side, right? Who is investing in our fund? And Brian will tell you a bit more about that in a second. Brian, well, yeah, my point is we have 44 LPs. The average check size is, the average commitment is 116K. We have raised 5 million up to now on a rolling fund, right? Brian can explain a bit more on this, but we basically have a fund that is open-ended. So we are fundraising on the go and deploying capital as we do, right? So that allowed us to be really quick and start supporting the best teams coming through our cohorts. Brian, take it from here.
Hey, thanks, Tommy. Yeah, it's been it's kind of happened organically. Originally, we did these initial cohorts. I was doing some angel investing, sharing some deal flow with friends, and basically I was kind of running low on the capital that I could personally deploy. And we have a very good network of people. So our LPs are kind of broken into two categories. We reached out to some of our friends, founders of companies like Nubank. David Velas was an early supporter, one of our first LPs. But really, it's concentrated in kind of two main groups. It's people that are operators, that are founders, that have scaled large companies, tech companies, either globally or in the region. And then we've been fortunate to have the support of NFX was one of our first LP check, Networks Effect, VC from the Valley, but a handful of other GPs of funds that are really just downstream capital for us, and that we've had a relationship with for a while. So we didn't actually start this with from the day one as thinking about a fund, but they're just the opportunities were so incredibly attractive that we decided to take additional capital on. And really get the network effect spinning even more, because this is smart capital. It's as smart as you can get in terms of capital, and oftentimes LPs are willing to kind of pitch in and help where need be. So as I mentioned, we're entrepreneurs, and I like to have my cake and eat it too, meaning that to me it's a little boring just to invest capital. And so these three components we talked about, the community and the fellowships. The fund is an essential part, because the startups do need capital, and we want to help with that. But what we really care about as entrepreneurs is we love solving problems. We love building solutions. And so I'd love for Yuri to come up and chat a little bit more about the products. And, Yuri is the CTO. It'd be great, Yuri, if you can share a little bit more about some of the products that we're building and some of the pains that we're trying to solve.
Thank you, Brian. So as Brian mentioned, I'm a co-founder and CTO at Latitude, and it's really amazing to see you all here. So we started this journey with a mission to uplift the startup ecosystem in Latin America by helping as many founders as we could. And after running multiple programs, we realized two things. One is that we can only help so many people on Zoom calls, even with the robust mentor network. And two is that there are really hard problems that founders face that are just not easily solvable, with advice. And I'll give you an example. So if I'll give you advice for how to do user interviews, you may walk out of that session and next day you'll do a pretty good user interview. But if I'll tell you about fundraising or hiring engineers, those are massive problems. And you likely walk away with more questions and months of work ahead of you. So advice doesn't really solve them very easily. So that's why we're excited to start building our digital products to solve biggest founder pains at scale. Go ahead, Brian, please go to the next one. So after hundreds and hundreds of hours of helping founders in Latin America, we really dialed in on 4 key pains and kind of structured our roadmap around them. On the left, you see kind of the first steps of the journey, getting started. In Latin America, it's hard even before you start. So we want to reduce friction to start like a venture-backed startup in Latin America by helping you with the company formation, helping the founders with company formation, and also picking like the right partners and tools for the journey. Next is getting customers. It is really hard to get initial customers at startup and get that initial traction. So powered by our community, we'll be launching products that help startups get off the ground and get the initial traction. Then we have raising money. Fundraising is super tough. Even with all the activity in Latin America, it's still a very, very big challenge. And so here we want to help connect founders with top angels and seed funds. And we recognize that this is a problem that many people have tackled and failed, but we believe we have a unique advantage and a unique perspective that will help us succeed. Our 2 biggest inspirations on this are Y Combinator on the network side and AngelList on the product side. And so stay tuned for more. We'll be investing in that. And hiring talent. Once you got some initial traction and raise some money, you're going to need to build a world-class team to scale your startup. And today is extremely hard, and there's a lot of competition for this talent. So we want to accelerate the startup talent acquisition for hardest positions, such as product management, data, and software engineering. And it's worth pointing out that the community gives us an unfair advantage because our fellows become partners, early adopters, and promoters for our products. And so right now, I'd like to ask Jan to come up and tell us a little bit about the progress we've been making on our first digital product. Hey, Jan, please jump in.
Thanks, man. Yeah, as Yuri mentioned, Latitude Products is all about solving founder problems at scale and forming your offshore structure to receive investments from the best investors in the world, best funds, is a problem that every single founder has to go through, and it's a huge pain point. And as a clear example of that, we have Brian. He set up the wrong structure when building Viva Real, and it cost the shareholders $100 million on exiting the business. And him, like many other founders, couldn't afford world-class lawyers at the time. So that's why we partnered up with the best-in-class Gunderson, Carey Olsen, and BZCP, top law firm in Brazil, to offer 10x cheaper and 2x faster offshore company formations at scale. Our vision for Go is that it will eventually become the one-stop shop for opening and flipping VC-backable startups in Latam, providing not only the formation aspect, but also offering essential tools and services like bank accounts and cap table management and all that stuff that all startups need. In terms of feedback and how founders are receiving the product, I've conducted over 50 interviews, and the WhatsApp message on the right It's kind of like the standard reaction, of course, when they don't think it's a scam. We already have 4 early customers lined up for our beta formation, and we're going to start rolling them out next week. And just to reinforce Yuri's point of how big of an unfair advantage we have by building on top of the community, all of those 4 customers came either from inside the community or referrals by the community. Last thing that I'd like to say before wrapping up is that you're probably wondering, it's a high ticket item, very low recurrence. Why are we making it 10x cheaper? Like, what's it in for us? So it's going to be our thought process there. It's that it's going to become a no-brainer to start and flip with Latitud Go, and that will help us identify founders right at the beginning of the journey or when they're raising money. That will enable us to build social capital with them and sell them the other products that we have in our suite, and of course help identify investment opportunities. And the latter has already been proven even before the product launch. One of these 4 customers ended up being a great investment opportunity, and we closed one of our larger checks through Latitud Go. That's all I had on my end. Thank you. Back to you, Brian.
Hey, Jan, thanks so much. Yeah, I guess to summarize, we want to make it almost irresponsible to not start your journey with Latitud Go when you're starting a venture-backed company. And so this is really just a long-term play for us and an opportunity for us to solve a massive friction point. But as Yuri mentioned earlier, there's a handful of other problems that we want to solve, and this is just the starting point. So listen, we're going to probably wrap up here. We like to be very efficient with your time. We don't want to drone on about what we're doing, but I do want to just leave you with some closing words here, and then of course open it up for any Q&A. We're an open book here, and it's important for us. We want to learn from you. One of the benefits of putting this out in the open for everybody is that we can get ideas back, we can share and learn together. But I think that you can see a lot of these analogies here. Latitude, directionally, our logo looks like a mountain. There's all these travel kind of. This is not by accident. We believe that the founder journey is it's hard, it's lonely. Maybe it looks like this boat where you're out in the middle of the ocean here. But we do think that these rising tides that we're seeing in Latin America, we think that we can lift all boats. And so, it's one of the reasons why in our community, we have people that we don't invest in, but we still help because we think it's just making the ecosystem larger. And we think that Latin America, there can be 100 times more number of startups, more entrepreneurs that instead of working in, corporate jobs, and having that safety net, where it becomes more common to attack those and solve those massive problems and incredible friction that we see in Latin America. So we feel very motivated by our mission, which is to elevate the next generation of iconic companies to come out of Latin America and to really compete on a global stage. We think that that's a real possibility, and we believe in the talent and the potential of the region. And so, without further ado, I'm happy to open up for any questions. And of course, if you want to get in contact with us, if you're not subscribing to our podcast already, you should do that. And also feel free to reach out to us on any of these channels here. But I think that's pretty much it. So let's see if there's any questions. Looks like we have a few questions here. Let me pull it up. By the way,
if you have questions, post them in the Q&A box. You'll see.
Thank you. All right, cool. So Luciana, awesome. Good to. She's one of our mentors. She's led a session and she's been on my podcast. And I had the privilege of investing in her company, Love Mondays, which was acquired by Glassdoor. You're asking if these products are available to non-fellow startups. The answer is for Latitud Go, we're starting within our community, but we will definitely open up many of our products to anyone. The community is our starting point, and it's our place where we can kind of test products, get customer feedback. But we will be making products available to anyone in any geographic region in Latin America that can participate. The next anonymous question, Gina, why don't you take this one? Do founders need to speak fluent English to participate at Latitude? Both, we're not using Accelerator, we're using Fellowship and Fund or Fund. Can you take that one?
Yes, founders need to speak fluent English in order to participate, and it's a tough decision that we took because we understand that is a big limiting factor in Latin America. But there's a number of reasons why we've decided to do that. Some of which are, one, we really want to unite the region, as I said, and many of us have said on this call. So it's important that we all have a common language and it not be portuñol, and English facilitates that. Secondly, this allows us to have mentors from all over the world, and a lot of our mentors only speak English and sessions are in English. We do think about how we're going to make this accessible to a lot more people in the future, but basically right now the answer is yes.
Thank you. Next question is from Matt. Matt, do you guys have available investment vehicles that allow retail investors to become LPs to support the founders and their startups? Yes, we do. In fact, if someone could post a link here, I'll do it real quick, where you can learn more about the fund, and actually you can subscribe directly on the internet to our funds, assuming you're an accredited investor. So in the chat here, I just put a link to our fund. We have a rolling fund on AngelList. The way the rolling fund works is, Matt, let's say that you want to invest, $200,000 into the fund. You would subscribe on a quarterly basis, 25,000 every quarter, and each quarter is a new fund. It's like almost a series of SPVs, and so you would get exposure to every company in each quarter during those 8 quarters. And so that's yes, Tommy, if you want to add to that, go ahead.
The only thing I would share there is these need to be accredited investors under US standards, right? So you can Google that; it's publicly available. So it's not for any retail investor, right? It's not equity crowdfunding, so it's limited to US accredited investors, which has a minimum annual income and/or minimum wealth.
Fund size. And just as a side note here, for many of those that don't know, typically you can't actually solicit capital in the way we're doing right now. That's actually not legal by most funds, but our fund is set up in a 506C regulation. And so under SEC rules, we're actually very uniquely placed where we can solicit money publicly. And that's part of the reason why we're building kind of a media asset also, because long-term, so far we've kept it mainly within our community of people we know. But ironically, we haven't, promoted it much, but we've had a few people from the Silicon Valley that have just got wind of it and then signed up to become LPs. So Matt, hopefully that answers your question. And if you want to reach out and get more information, send an email to Tommy or I, and we're happy to answer any more questions about how the LP relationship works. Gustavo, good to see you here. Thank you for the feedback. You asked for startups that already applied. Is it worth it to apply again? Yes, I think that absolutely. We unfortunately, we haven't been perfect in getting back to every single startup. We've tried to, let everyone know. Unfortunately, with over 1,000 applications coming from all over, Latin America, and frankly, from Europe and the US, where founders are also building for LATAM, we have struggled to process the amount of interest we've had. And so we've done our best to get back to you. But if you were not accepted into the last cohort, we've had a handful of people that were not accepted in the first or second cohort or in this cohort. And it's frankly, just, we look to kind of have a balance of the right people and, right stages and right sectors. So please, we encourage you to apply again, and we'll do our best to communicate to you. Thank you. The next question, have you had any EdTech startups? Yes, we've had a handful of EdTech startups that have come through, multiple. I'd say we've invested. Yeah,
we've invested in 2 of them. One of them is Learnico. There's actually a podcast with the founder and CEO Yasaman in London, and then the other one is Education Journey. But yeah, we've had I would say around 10% of the companies in our whole community are EdTechs. Yeah.
Thank you, Tommy. Rodolfo, 3 quick questions. Hopefully 3 quick answers. when does the next fellowship start? I'll answer that. Oh, and then the deadline to apply. And then are we posting a recording of this somewhere online? Good questions. I'll answer the first two in conjunction together. Do we have a date, team, on the next fellowship that we're launching?
Not a formal date, but mid-August is what we're shooting for.
Mid-August. And typically we have a buffer of 2 weeks between. So I would say August 1st will likely be a cutoff date for us. But that is the unofficial statement as of today. And then in terms of the recording, we will post the recording of this. We will make it available. Gina, where do we want to post this?
Maybe that's a Gabby question.
We can post it on YouTube. So
Yeah.
subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to our YouTube. Smash the like button. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Gabby's our head of content, by the way.
Yeah, Gabby, thank you. She's the one that makes us look good behind the scenes. So and we put the podcast if you've got interest in joining that. But we'll make it available on YouTube. We have a lot of other great interviews. It's actually kind of mind blowing. We have like Kevin Effersey from Excel talking about the story of when he invested in Zuckerberg, in the Series A or Series B or whatever it was, which is like a story that like no one has ever told. And, like 10 people have seen it yet because we just uploaded it recently. So there's some really good content, whether you're an LP, whether you're a founder, whether you're an angel investor, we've got something for you. The next one, do you invest in solo founders? The answer is yes, Gustavo, we do. We don't have a rule about that. In some cases, one of the things that we believe is that, we invest so early sometimes that sometimes we'll invest in an individual kind of on a PowerPoint stage. And we've actually, in some cases, helped them find a co-founder if they want one. Part of the benefit of our community is that many people join early in the hopes of connecting with another co-founder. Maybe you're working at, Mercado Libre and you were part of the payments team and you join the fellowship and you're looking for someone that has a certain skill set that you don't have. So that's something that, we've been able to kind of manufacture serendipity through our fellowships and something that we continue to hope to do. But yes, we will accept individuals to the fellowship and have zero restrictions about solo founders. Next question from Federico. Good to have you here. You mentioned the angel program will be open in the second half. Could you provide a little bit more color on that? Yes. As an angel investor that, I've personally done, 65 deals, I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, my first check, I learned a lot. It was $50,000 that evaporated very quickly. And, you've got to have a stomach for it. So there's a handful of topics that I've just learned over the years. And, one thing that I know about angel investing is that it's a team sport. It's not an individual thing. That's why kind of angel syndicates, in the US have become so popular. And so we will absolutely, build the best network of angel investors where everyone's helping each other. And, if you think about angel investing, if you're looking at a prop tech company, I'm probably a person you want to talk to. If you're looking at an ed tech company, Gina, having scaled Duolingo from 3 million users to 200 million users globally, is probably a good resource for you. And so we want to verticalize expertise. And through our fund, oftentimes we'll invest $100,000, $150,000. There's a handful of deals that we have currently going right now where we're investing small checks, maybe a $300,000 round, and we're doing half of it. We would love to have 5 to 10 angels pile in and do $10,000 to $20,000 checks. And ideally, it would be great if we had someone with expertise beyond our knowledge in fintech, in ed tech, in health tech. So that's part of the initiative with the Angel Fellowship. We'll bring world-class angel investors and funds also to share, similar to how we've done with the Founder Fellowship, to democratize more access to best practices and networks. Thank you for your question. Next question from Edwin. Thanks for the great job you guys are leading. Thank you very much. I'm glad you feel inspired by that. What are the key aspects you're looking for in founders when you decide to bet on the team at very early stage? Later on the journey, do you have a one-size-fits-all terms when you decide to invest? Tommy, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, on the second question, we don't have a one size fits all, right? We're, again, not an accelerator. We're keeping the fellowship and the fund decoupled because we really want to add value to a ton of founders with the fellowship program. So we have, of course, our target ownership stakes and our check sizes, but we can move within those. Regarding the first question, what do we look for? So we have, I think there's something on the website around here, but we're looking for quite specific for the fellowship, right? For fellowship applicants, we're looking for people with technical, different buckets, right? People with technical backgrounds, people with, or people with sector expertise, or people with product management or growth backgrounds, or people with, of course, second-time founders, I would say. And the last one is what we call outliers, right? Outliers could mean very strong referral from our network, or having any other big endorsement. Gina, please, if you want to add anything to that. She doesn't, I think.
I don't. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Tommy. Terrence, there's a question. It says you had many questions about the fund that were sent to angel.com. Yes, you just send it to me. If you have a question about the fund, just ask me. I'll answer it. And again, I'll probably answer it for the benefit of others. If you have a specific question, just send me an email at brian@latitude.com, and I'll answer your question. Thank you. Itzel, hey, how you doing? Itzel from El Paso, Texas. A Latino whose family came from Mexico. I'm perfectly fluent in both English and Spanish. My startup is to help Latam artisans and artists get a global audience. But since I don't live in Mexico, could I still apply for the fellowship? Or is it just for founders living in Latam? It is not for founders just living in Latam. We have, in this current cohort, we have Kelly, who's in, she's in Holland right now. We had, Rihanna
in New York.
Oriana's in New York. We had Susie from Dini, who was like, I think she was in London or somewhere. Mm-hmm. And, so as long as, in the case of Susie, she was connecting at midnight because she was in Europe, but some of the sessions, are a little later in the day, but there's no restrictions on your geographic location. We live in a remote world today. So you're happy to apply regardless. The criteria is there has to be a big focus in Latin America, whether your customers are in Latin America. In some cases, we've invested in companies where they're building global companies from Latin America. That's also okay. But there's got to be a connection with Latin America because we need to be able to leverage our network and our connections to help you succeed. And so we can help you if you're building something, in the south of France. Okay, so next one, Diana. So good to see you here. What is your overall vision? Where do you see Latitude in 5 or 10 years? Woo, big question. I like it. So where do we see this going? I think that the long-term vision here is, I think you should be able to start a company and raise capital with a click of a button if you want a really futuristic look at what we think this looks like. And so that, and when we look at the product side, we think that we can enable a lot of things today that are not possible. And so there's been a lot of people that have tried on the fundraising side to, build products to streamline that process, but have failed. And I think we have some insight into why that's failed. We're looking at, the opportunity. If you think of startups in Latin America, I'll take Kavak as an example. Kavak had to build a ton of infrastructure in Latin America because, the 100-point check system on the car, the marketing arm, the lending side. And so we think that Latin America it's difficult, but there's an opportunity to build a very, very strong moat if you're building the whole rails for everything. So I guess to wrap up here, we want to be the place where people go to find capital, community, talent, and customers. And that would be if we can be the place for those 4 things, I think we'll build a pretty valuable enterprise. But like anything, and in all transparency, our vision is changing as we go. And the advantage we have is that our founders are also in the same boat where they're in the process of adapting and pivoting and changing and learning at the same time, which makes us highly relatable as investors because we're also doing the same thing. In fact, if you want to listen to the podcast episode from yesterday, Gene and I dive into that a little bit more. But thank you, Diana. I hope you're enjoying your fly fishing out there. I know you're fly fishing in Montana. I'm jealous. I'm sitting here on Zoom all week, but thanks for tuning in. Next one.
Well, sorry for Brian. He's in Lake Tahoe, just an intermission.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Busted. Anonymous, do you preserve are applications anonymous for people which are currently in their jobs? Awesome question. This is something really cool that we have done from day one. We did this by, again, another thing, a reason why to listen to your customers, right? We had a handful of people that were at top companies and they're like, I don't really want people to know that I'm thinking about starting a company. And so we actually have a, ability. It's kind of quiet mode when you join the fellowship. There's a little symbol like this next to you're in the directory, and we respect your privacy, and we want to make sure that you can covertly join Latitude and that your identity can be preserved there. And so that's something that we do because you don't want your boss, if you're working at Google, to know that you're thinking of starting a company because you're still employed. And the program is a very light touch. It's kind of a buffet. You put what you get out what you put into it. And so our typical programming is like 1 to 2 hours a day, usually four days a week. And so it's very adaptable for someone that's working at the same time. Thank you. Gustavo, would you invest in startups that are currently Latam based, but will start opening this semester a Miami market and maybe base the startup there? The answer is yeah. I think we're not restrictive in how you have to be something. Miami is in many ways the gateway to Latin America. So there's Gina, in fact, fun fact, our headquarters are now in Miami because Gina is in Miami. So basically that's where our official headquarters are. And so we're on the Miami train too. So yes, the answer is that's fine. As long as you have an element, of Latin America in something that we can add value to, that's completely acceptable. All right, Alex, founders who would like to scale to Asia, for instance, do you think of partnering up, building a referral system to accelerators in that region? For instance, 500 Startups says the Singapore program launching soon. I don't know. Probably the short answer is nothing on the roadmap currently. But the world is flat, right? As Thomas Friedman said in his book, this is definitely an opportunity, and I wouldn't discard it. But I think we're hyper focused on Latin America, and that's part of our competitive advantage is to go deeper rather than wider. So my quick reaction is we don't have anything today, no plans, but there's definitely an opportunity to find partners. I recently had a sync up with someone who's building something from Singapore that's very similar to what we're building. So I'm sure that there'll be, an opportunity to find potential partners, and our network is getting pretty large. So we even have LPs from Asia already. So that's kind of the benefit of our decentralized capital base. What's your stance on underestimated founders? Great question. I think I'll let Gina kind of expand on this, but I wouldn't say that. I think that all founders feel underestimated at sometimes, and you can take that question and run it with a couple different ways. I realized that I had some, being from California gave me some certain competitive advantages. Being a white male also gave me some advantages, but I felt underestimated on my journey, despite that. So imagine someone that didn't have those privileges that I have. But, I didn't go to Stanford. I went to a shitty, well, not a shitty school. It's a good school, but it was not it wasn't a top tier Ivy League school that I went to. It was known for its beaches ahead of academics. And so, I think that we love, I think that we look at the founders, I think, all of us feel like we were underestimated in our journeys, and we're very scrappy. Yuri came to the US from Russia and, kind of paid his way through college. And so to some degree, you know, we feel connected with underrepresented founders, and we have made, you know, more broadly responding to the question, diversity is a high priority for our community. And so we have made a very focused effort to try to do that. I think we only have 1 minute left. We're very strict on time at Latitude. So the rocket ship is going to land here in a second. How can you describe the others outside what is Latitude? It's not Accelerate nor a fund. George, I'm going to be super candid with you. I don't feel like I've nailed the delivery. I would say that it's kind of like what you get if YC and Stanford had a Latin baby. Okay, that works. Gina's making a funny face. That's how I describe it. So we're going to end here. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to, learn more, apply as a founder. If you want to be an LP, send us a message. We're happy to, to have you invest. Yeah, let's elevate the ecosystem together. This is day one for us, and it's great to be on this journey with all of you. We can do this as a community and really as a team. So thank you to our co-founders, and a shout out to our team. We have an awesome team. Kevin, on some incredible content stuff that he's done. Lucas, we're like cool because we're on TikTok. Gina and the rest of the Gen Zs on our team. We love you guys. And then Gabi has been killing it with the content. Aleix, master, of the program. We've really loved having the benefit of you. Marcial, our newest team member as of last week, who's awesome, and we loved his application. We couldn't say we had to choose him to join our team. And am I missing anybody? I think that's it, right? Cool. Thank you very much, everybody. Signing off.